A, residential agricultural 1.
Right.
And it discusses woodlots.
Mm-hmm.
So woodlots are not applicable to the rec zone.
That's a good point.
Okay.
Did not pick up on that.
So there's another, so then when you get to page 4 of 53, building lot requirements, that's still in RA1.
Correct.
So those don't apply to the rec zone.
That's true.
And as far as I can tell, there are no requirements that apply to the rec zone for a building lot, for a lot,
Nope.
as far as I can tell.
I haven't seen anything.
And so, I don't know exactly what that means. I mean, it may mean that you can do anything reasonable, you know?
Well, again, I don't know what it means, and that's why I'm asking the people that are gonna direct me.
So I think, I think we'll have to go into the subdivision regulations and understand what the requirements to do the subdivision are, but I think that in terms of, you know, lot size, road frontage, those are all part of building lot requirements. And you're not trying to create a building lot, and even the wood lot requirements are just give you, so make it so you don't need the road frontage on a class 5 road. But that's not an issue in the rec zone either, right? So I think it really comes down to what is the, and I'm not that familiar with the subdivision regulations, but.
I did read through the subdivision regulations for the first time in 2 years today, and didn't see anything specific. There's only one mention that I could find about the rec zone, but it wasn't about the rec zone. It had to do, here it is. I'm sorry you don't have a copy, but I'll just read it to you. Subdivision regulations, page 4. Subsection Article 5, general provisions. It says, Item 2, land of such character that it cannot, in the judgment of the board, be safely used for building development purposes because of exceptional danger to health or peril from fire, flood, poor drainage, excessive slope, or other hazardous conditions shall not be platted for residential or recreational subdivision, nor for such other uses as may increase danger to life or property or aggravate the flood hazard. Land with inadequate characteristics or capacity for sanitary sewage disposal shall not be subdivided for residential or recreational subdivision purposes unless connected to a municipal sewage system. Such conditions shall so be noted on the final plat. I'm not really sure what that says.
That just gives you
Feeling
some
the steep slope
guidelines
down.
on the slopes.
And yeah, and
That's left over from the school.
I think that the issue of steep slopes is pretty obvious that this is a conservation easement. You're never going to build anything up there. Yeah.
There's subdivisions and there's subdivisions, a single one lot subdivision versus a subdivision consisting of saleable lots.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference in reference here. Mm-hmm. What he's looking to do, I mean, may not fall into the category. When you were talking about woodlot, are you referring specifically to the portion that's in current use?
Yes.
Which then, that makes it a certain classification of the value of the lot or a crop that might be on the lot or what its taxable rate is. That's generally how my current use land works. So, I mean, there's different
You know, I know
grades of woodlot.
Spinoff was dealing with the town prior to me buying the property, and ultimately, if they would have succeeded in getting the property, they were going to try to remove the lodge from the land anyway, and they would have looked for a buyer. So I think even if Spinoff would end up with the property ahead of me, that they would have almost pursued this very similar route. You know, maybe they might have put more land in conservation, but ultimately I think that's what was going to happen with that property.
I think they were talking like leaving 60 acres out.
Well, yeah, a little less than that.
Yeah, it's a unique situation because I think our zoning all deals with the recreational area as just that given parcel, figuring that it's never going to change, and there's not a whole lot put into that section.
Yeah.
A whole lot of regulations, I
Yeah.
know, and can and can't do's,
Yeah.
other than you can't build a house on it.
And realistically, even in the conservation, be it one lot or two lot that encompasses the rec zone, nothing's going to really change.
Yeah, it's still just going to be trees and a hill.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I think there's a lot of people in town who'd be happy to see that happen. So you're, at this point, you're looking for information on what applications and so forth would yes, we can give you a copy of the applications. And
So it would be
as
an
well as
application, and I would go before the planning.
correct.
Okay.
There are fees involved, it's not free.
Yeah.
So,
Nothing's free today.
no. Sorry, Eddie, I thought I'd.
Well, I was just thinking, but I kind of answered my own question, so no, I have nothing to say.
So, let's take, do you have any more questions or comments or?
No,
anything?
if that's the direction I can head.
Sure.
You know, my other direction I've always known is that I could go before the ZBA and do the subdivision, less the
Yeah.
road frontage,
Yeah.
and I think I can make a strong case for that. I'd rather not go that route, but it is an option. But if I can go the woodlot route, I think I might prefer.
Well, that's
that.
what Rob just said, is you can't go the woodlot route, because woodlots only, I was confused on that. Woodlots only apply to the RA1 district, which is
So
the
then-
residential agricultural
then
district.
What route are you taking me?
I think you have, the woodlots would put some restrictions on your subdivision that you don't need to have. I think that there are, as far as I mean,
I think
my reading of our zoning says that there are no standards that we need to apply to either of the resulting lots that would restrict you in any way. I mean, there's general things we need to look for, but like there's no road frontage requirements as far as I read it right now.
Oh, because of the rec zone, you're telling me I can
Right.
come in for a subdivision in the rec zone, and because it is the rec zone, the subdivision requirement of road frontage will not kick in.
Well,
that's my reading of it right now, yeah.
that's where we're confused, is that
I get
what
you.
we initially thought about woodlots doesn't apply, because that only applies to the RA1 zone. And your property is a different zone, and, or I should say, Ed, you own property in that zone as well now. So your properties are in a different zone, but, so I guess the simplest thing to say was I'm a little confused as to.
So everybody needs.
You have a copy of our zoning.
Oh, yeah.
You got this one.
I mean, the latest and the greatest, any changes that we've made since you've been through the process?
Okay,
I don't know about that, but
Okay, let's take a 5-minute adjournment here. If anybody doesn't have any more questions, and we can end this preliminary conceptual. Yeah, one more question?
Yeah, have you put this before anybody that you seek advice from outside this board about how we can approach the zoning here?
I haven't, because ultimately I'm gonna be in front of this board, and that's really the only opinion that matters.
Well, it's not necessary.
Well, again, unless you wanna go the legal route, and we don't wanna go the legal route.
No, we don't wanna do that
I just
either.
wanna nice and easy here.
There is, just to make sure everybody is aware, there is another step that is non-binding that's called a pre-application design review, which essentially the next step would be you go and take our stuff and work with Spinif or whoever and come up with your design. You can come back and present that to us as a pre-application phase to say, this is what I'm thinking about, let's look at the technical merits and make sure everything's okay before you put in an application. The difference on that one is you do have to notify the abutters, and there's timelines and so forth. Eddie, did I miss something? You don't have to, that's an optional thing.
I'm just thinking there's going to be a lot more to it than that, because there are no specific regulations for the rec zone, with the exception of that if he subdivides, it's going to kick in a site plan review and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We have minimum lot sizes and road frontages that apply everywhere else, so people are going to want to know why that's not being applied.
That is a good point.
It's gonna stir the pot. So
yes, it sure will.
At a more private setting, I might have a suggestion.
Yeah. Okay.
I would like to think, knowing that the land is going in permanent conservation, that it wouldn't ruffle too many feathers, and they wouldn't. I'd like to think that, but you just never know.
You never know.
In small towns.
And you're dividing it into two pieces, not 500 little
Two
pieces,
pieces,
right?
the big conservation easement, pretty restrictive,
And the word we're using, subdivision, everybody's blood.
Right, their
That's
feathers
the
are
point.
gonna
So hear that, you know.
All this stuff is
So
feel good.
let's
go.
go
When is it
back.
gonna open up
But
now?
I remember Bob's original approaching of this board way back when. And it was a very friendly conversation. I remember it. And what climactically resulted in the enormous legal snafu that we wound up in, that nobody here wants to go.
Now, if we mind our manners and think a little bit.
Well, yeah, but the snafu didn't emanate from this board, and it didn't emanate from Mr. Bordeaux, but it emanated. I mean, everybody here remembers the whole thing. I remember it poignantly because I got police in charge of the mess.
Yep. Yep.
But it would seem to me that all that came from, excuse me please, I got music going on over here. All that came from a concerned citizen who didn't particularly care for the direction you were going in or the planning board was going in or whatever. And it makes sense because the letter of law is always what makes the problem, right? I mean, you're reading things here and Rob came up with a good point, and God only knows what other good points are in here, but it would seem to me, and we're not obligated to run this from the town attorney to solve any problems you may have. Well, this is sensible, but it does make sense that the town attorney look at that from the letter of the law.
Certainly.
If you were to apply the next thing. What it does is eliminates a big impediment.
Because of the vagueness of our subdivision
Correct.
regulations, it might be on our, I mean, we'll give you a copy of everything you need tonight before you leave.
Right.
But I think Gary does bring up a good point that before we say this is the 100% sure process, we better check with our attorney to make sure that we're not because as we learned in that whole process before, case law is different than reading the law.
Yep.
And so there could be things that we're just not aware of that, you know, we don't want to miss.
And I'm not even opening up another can of worms.
No, we don't want that either.
Mr. Chairman, you were going
Yes.
to take a.
Yes, I just want to make sure everybody got everything they wanted out. So anybody else want to say anything? Okay, let's make it a 10-minute break. We're going to make copies of the subdivision regulations, application. You say you have the zoning? You sure?
I am sure I do.
Okay. Okay.
So you're not going to non-public, this is just...
No, this is just a recess, a 10-minute recess. Okay, so George, let's make copies real quick.
The Nation,
Here.
Gary Ciccarone,
Here.
Rick Charette,
Present.
Jim Freeman,
Who are you in for?
Clifton Camp,
What are you in for?
Charlotte
Who are you
Coleman,
in for?
Here,
Raising it?
Rob Collins,
Here.
Ed Comeau.
Here.
Okay, so everybody who's here is still here. Good. Could you make a note in the minutes, please, George, that we gave a photocopy of my copy of the subdivision regulations to Bob, as well as a full copy of the rules of procedure, and I explained to him how the application is at the rear of it, the common application, and showed him how he needs to fill out pages 1 through 7A for a subdivision. And so I gave him the initial instructions, and I made him aware that if he needs anything else, we'd be glad to make a copy of it and drive it right over to his place. Okay, so as soon as you're done writing there, first things, Section 6 has been dragging on for a couple of months for obvious reasons. I think that the fastest thing we can do is look at the conditional use application first. There's an update on that. George took the time to retype it. If you may recall, several meetings back, I had come in with a proposed conditional use permit application that was all text. I just typed out, basic ASCII text because I was having problems with formatting it on my computer. The board at the July meeting adopted that as a working document. We were going to work on it again in August, but then my computer blew up and we weren't able to work on it. And in the interim, George has retyped the paper copy he had to this format. And what he did was he took the changes that were suggested in July and he incorporated them into this new typed up document. And I think it would be nice if you could take a minute there, George, to explain what the different text format
Yes.
means.
You'll find that it's slightly lighter where there was changes. So example is
At the top of the page, it says proposed application for conditional use permit working document.